It almost ended right there, not with a sack or an interception, but with something the Rams never do, shooting themselves in the foot when it mattered most. That's why Sean McVay's tone shifted this week, because this wasn't just about one ugly win. This was a warning sign that could end a playoff run before it ever really begins. And buried inside that warning is the most uncomfortable truth of all. The Rams might be walking into the most dangerous version of a game they hate playing, at the exact moment Matthew Stafford can't afford anything to go wrong. McVay didn't yell. He didn't deflect. He didn't sugarcoat it either. When the Rams escaped Carolina, the scoreboard said win, but the film said something else entirely. A team built on discipline suddenly looked careless, and that bothered McVay more than the score ever could, because he knows something most fans don't want to admit. In January football, you don't survive on talent alone. You survive by eliminating mistakes. And the Rams flirted with disaster in a way that felt completely out of character. This is a team that prides itself on control. Over the last 5 seasons, no team in the NFL has been more buttoned up than the Rams when it comes to penalties. They don't beat themselves. They don't hand opponents free yards. They don't extend drives with mental errors. Until suddenly, they did. 9 penalties, 83 yards, momentum swings that turned a manageable game into a late-night heart attack. McVay admitted it bothered him, not just because it happened, but because it didn't align with who they are when they're at their best. That phrase matters, when we're at our best, because McVay knows the margin for error is gone now. What you can survive in the wild card round will bury you in the divisional round. And what you can survive indoors won't always travel with you outdoors. That's where this story turns uncomfortable. Against Carolina, the flags weren't cosmetic. They directly put points on the board. Kobe Durant's pass interference in the end zone flipped a stop into a touchdown. Quinton Lake followed with another PI that extended a drive that should have been over. Braden Fisk jumped off sides on 3rd and manageable, gifting a free play and fresh downs. Desjuan Johnson's unsportsmanlike conduct penalty handed Carolina 15 free yards and a short field. Then came the blocked punt late, the kind of play that feels small until it rips your heart out. Bryce Young didn't hesitate. 7-yard touchdown. Go-ahead score. Suddenly the Rams were staring at the very real possibility of becoming the latest playoff cautionary tale. A disciplined team undone by discipline lapses. A contender blinking first. They survived because Matthew Stafford refused to let them lose. That's the part that makes this dangerous. Stafford took over late. He always has that switch, that calm defiance when everything feels like it's collapsing. In the 4th quarter, he went 12 of 15 for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. Precision, timing, trust. The decisive score to Colby Parkinson wasn't flashy, but it was cold-blooded. It was veteran quarterbacking at its finest. But there was something else happening that night that can't be ignored. Stafford's hand bent backward on a follow-through. You could see it instantly. The grab, the pause, the look down. For a moment, everything slowed. This wasn't just any injury scare. This was his throwing hand. In January, on the road, with weather looming, he stayed in. He always does. He flashed the thumbs up. He finished the job. And afterward, he downplayed it. Said it was fine. Said it was just stiff. Said by Sunday he'd be feeling great. And maybe he will. Stafford has earned the benefit of the doubt. But here's the problem. His hand might not be the biggest issue he's about to face, because history is sitting there quietly, waiting to be acknowledged. In his last 10 games played in rain or snow, Stafford is 1-9. 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Those numbers don't scream collapse, but they don't scream dominance either. They tell a story of a quarterback who has not always looked comfortable when conditions turn hostile. And now, the forecast isn't just unfriendly, it's brutal. Temperatures around 20 degrees. Winds near 18 miles per hour. A real chance of snow. No dome. No climate control. No margin for error. This is where Sean McVay's warning about penalties becomes more than just discipline talk. In cold, windy games, every mistake is magnified. A 5-yard penalty kills a drive. A free first down becomes points. A blocked punt becomes the difference between advancing and packing up. This season alone, Stafford has played just 2 games outdoors below 50 degrees. In those games, he completed 60% of his passes for 512 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. For context, he threw only 8 interceptions all season. That's not a coincidence. That's a split that forces uncomfortable conversations. And that's why McVay is tightening the screws now. He knows Stafford can't keep bailing them out. Not in these conditions. Not against a team that thrives on physicality. Not when the wind can turn a perfect spiral into a wounded duck. McVay's entire message this week is about control. Control the penalties. Control the tempo. Control the details. Because once you lose control in this environment, you don't get it back. This isn't an indictment of Stafford. It's an acknowledgement of reality. Quarterbacks don't get better in 20-degree windstorms. Teams do. Teams that protect the ball. Teams that avoid flags. Teams that don't ask their quarterback to be Superman on every drive. That's the tension sitting inside this Rams team right now. They have the quarterback. They have the experience. They have the coach. But they're walking a tightrope where one bad habit could undo everything they've built. And McVay knows it. That's why his words carried weight. He wasn't posturing. He wasn't playing to the media. He was drawing a line. This can't happen again. Not now. Not here. Not with what's coming next. Because here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. If the Rams lose this game, it won't be because Matthew Stafford's finger bent backward. It won't be because the weather was unfair. It will be because the Rams forgot who they are. And that's the part that makes this matchup so fascinating. This game isn't just about Stafford versus the cold. It's about discipline versus chaos. Experience versus environment. Control versus momentum. The Rams have lived on the right side of that equation for years. But the Panthers' game showed a crack. Just one. But in January, one crack is enough. So here's the real question. Was last week an anomaly? Or was it a warning shot? Because if the penalties return, if the mental mistakes creep back in, if Stafford is forced to throw 40 times in swirling wind, this becomes a very different conversation. A conversation about missed opportunities, about what could have been, about a season that ended not with a bang, but with a flag on the field. And that's why this week matters so much more than it looks on paper. Before you scroll away, I want to know this. Do you trust the Rams to clean this up in time? Or do you think the weather and the pressure will expose them? Drop your take in the comments, because this one is going to tell us exactly who the Rams really are.